All right, we're gonna open the planning and zoning meeting at 4 o'clock. Appreciate everyone being here. Before we get started with the meeting tonight, we've got a former P and Z commissioner here that was just elected to city council, and he requested to say a few words. He gave me $5, so I said, okay. Jeff?
So, thanks, Mike. Jeff Harris, 769 Oakland Hills Lane here in Kerrville, obviously, but I just wanted to come in and say thank y'all. The last almost 2 years serving as a commissioner on planning and zoning was a stepping stone that led to other things, but it was an honor to serve with y'all, and I just wanted to come up here and personally say thank y'all. It is a thankless job from sitting up there and knowing what y'all do, and the decisions are tough, and thank y'all for what y'all do for our community. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate your service, and we appreciate you serving on city council.
Thank y'all. Have a good meeting, and make it short.
Much over that
I
today.
like on that one.
Our first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the meeting on May 11th. I've reviewed the minutes. Does anyone else have any comments or corrections? And if they do not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as they are listed.
We have a motion, we have a second. Okay, a motion and a second, all in favor? All right, minutes are approved. And we're gonna move on to 2A, final plat establishing Comanche Trace Phase 12A. You want to take us through that, Drew?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is Comanche Trace Phase 12A, about 8.88 acres. This is along Comanche Trace Drive near the intersection of Clubhouse Road. There's the whole plat, but I'll actually go back so you can read that a little better. All utilities have been installed and completed. Staff recommends approval with no conditions.
Does anyone have any questions on this plat? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion on 2A.
I'll move to approve the final plat as presented.
We have a motion to approve the final plat as presented. Do I have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, this motion is approved. We're gonna move into the public hearing phase now. 3A, an ordinance amending the chapter 60 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Kerrville. You wanna start us off with that, Drew?
Yes, sir. This is amending the zoning code, is section of code that pertains to fencing in the front setback. So just a little history. Zoning code was rewritten in 2019, and that included included the current requirements for fencing in the front yard. Since then, we've had several requests for various materials and various heights that didn't meet those requirements. So we brought this back to the Planning Commission in the end of 21, beginning of 22, when we were looking at one of the zoning code updates. Finally got that to council just a couple months ago, and we had some additional comments coming from citizens based on height requirements that we hadn't talked about at Planning Commission level. So council actually pushed that back to the Planning Commission to consider in addition to the material discussion that we had. So again, the original goals were to allow for other materials, not just wrought iron fences. So we talked about wrought iron fences with brick columns, more the deer panel or hog panel style fencing. And these are the types of fences that we've had requests for that did not meet the code. Current code limited it to wrought iron only. So this is the amendment that you've got there before you. The next point, this is what P&Z recommended previously to council. Council was supportive of that, but the very top line there, no structure in excess of 30 inches for the maximum height of the solid portion of the fence. So going back to those pictures, you see the brick wall there, you've got a kind of knee-high wall for the solid portion and some other non-visually obstructing material above that.
Mm-hmm.
We had several citizens speak at the second reading to council, wanting consideration for 48 inches. So we did look at a handful of existing fences. We've got a couple pictures just to kind of help facilitate discussion, and we'll.
Are you saying 48 inches of solid wall?
Of a solid fence,
Okay.
that's correct. So the discussion points we had with council, obviously visibility down along the street and visibility for someone in a driveway are the kind of the two concerns there. Balancing that with obviously property rights, the desire for privacy and protection in the front yard, safety for children and animals. That 4-foot fence, the citizens felt that gave them better opportunities to utilize front yards as well as backyards. So the question from council was, should 48 inches be allowed for front yard fences for a solid fence? And I'll run through a couple pictures and then we'll open it for discussion and public hearing. So I did take this one specifically, the chain link fence, so you could see the car through it. But obviously a small car with 4-foot fence, you know, about half their window is blocked as they're sitting in the driveway. Also add, once they back up to the curb to start entering the street, because it is a small car, they actually would have visibility in front of the fence as well. And as you know, chain link and wrought iron fences, once you get looking laterally down the fence, it becomes opaque anyway. You're not really getting that much visibility. Again, here's another style fence on a corner lot, so you can see that the height, even a car at the intersection wouldn't be obstructed if that were a solid fence. And this is some of the types of fences that we've had permit requests for that we've denied because they don't meet those current regulations.
What is the front setback, Drew?
25 feet for R1, R2 you'd be 15 feet.
And the fence setback?
It cannot extend past the property line. So in this case, property line is going to be pretty close to the front of the fence. You'll have roughly 8 to 10 feet from the back of curb to the beginning of the fence in most neighborhoods. Typically it's 10 feet. There are some areas of town that's a little bit less than that. Again, these are the types of fences we've gotten requests for, in addition to some solid rock wall and concrete fences. Obviously you can see a half-ton pickup. You can see right over that one's probably about 40, 42 inches. But again, the question from council was really is 48 inch, should we consider 48 inches acceptable in the front yard? The only concern I would have is visibility. But again, with that limitation for no fencing between the back of curb and the property line, like that first picture, you really do still have visibility as you back out. You're not backing all the way out in the street in one fell swoop. Everybody backs up and takes a double check and looks up and down the street. With that, I'm entertaining any questions or open public hearing.
Well, we do have a couple of speakers on this, so let's open the public hearing at 4:08. And on 3A, I have 4, I guess. We'll start with Nick Villeneuve.
Hey, I'm Nick. You know, I was here at that last meeting to talk about just, if I went back in my particular, I live at 312 Valley Drive. My driveway, if I went back to 20 feet, I believe it is, it would be right down the center of my driveway. I have a circular driveway. It would cause kind of a problem. And I live up on a hill. I'm not on a corner lot. Our front yard is a lot bigger than our backyard. We utilize our front yard a lot more. So we were in the process, when I heard about this, of getting bids for a precast concrete wall. I just would like to, everybody consider the 4 foot seems reasonable. If I'm down up on, I mean, it comes right up to here. You could see over, my driveway comes down, I could see traffic, traffic can see me. And it's a pretty slow street anyway. That's all I wanted was just, those are great pictures to show that. I don't want to take any more time.
Thank
but
you.
Basically what
Celeste?
Hi, Celeste Barker. We have properties at 601 Elm and also at 414 West Water. I also spoke at the city council meeting about this second reading and had made the request for the 4 foot in the front. Again, for utilization of the front yard. We are on a corner lot where we currently have solid fencing in the 4 foot in the front. Our access in and out of our home is on the side entrance. We don't even enter other than to walk through in that way. So again, just some consideration for that to be raised to the 48 inches so it could be better utilized without having to go to a setback to where your house is of 25 feet. That negates the whole purpose of using your front yard. If you have a smaller lot, for people who have larger lots in certain areas of town, that's not really an issue, but for those of us that live in a condensed area, in the smaller neighborhoods, it essentially takes away over half of your yard use if you wanted to use that, so.
Thank you. George Rudy?
I'm just gonna reiterate what they both have said. In general, it seems like the original intent of this fence ordinance was more of an aesthetic. That's how they came up with this ornamental look. And we're now kind of hiding behind, it feels like, this public safety, which seems somewhat minimal. We already, I think, cover corner lots where you're not allowed to, block visibility or whatnot. And as she pointed out, my driveway's comes out on the side. I can't put anything in the front just because this regulation is so inflexible. We already are told we can't put things in our front yard unless it's screened, and now we can't screen them, so we're basically saying, don't use your front yard. I'm having a little trouble with whether it's 48, 30, or whatever. You've got the first couple of pictures he showed were almost like on a farm to market road or something like that. So the visibility thing, they probably have a long line where their fence is, and this seems, like I say, a little inflexible to what's mostly going to be happening. And you mentioned balancing property rights. This isn't a public safety, it's more like a private safety. It's the guy coming out of his driveway more than it is anybody else. And if they put up a fence, presumably they're going to take care of their own safety. It just seems like an overreach unnecessarily.
Chris, is it Barker?
Yes, sir. My name is Chris Barker. I live at 601 Elm. Want to thank you guys. I know this is kind of a pain, and we were late, so we didn't know about it the first time, or we would have been here talking about it the first time, but thanks for entertaining the topic again. Before this came up at the council meeting, we had asked council members and the staff, hey, we've lived in our house for a number of years and had nothing but compliments by people that we didn't even know stopping to tell us, oh, we love what you've done with your yard, love the wall. But we have a wall around our property that would not be approved through this process. And so we asked the city, hey, there's never been a problem. So is there something we don't know about? What is the problem that this new rule is going to, is designed to solve? And we got back that mostly the driving force of it was that the safety topic. And so I'm a contractor. We do precast and concrete wall work and fence work all over the state of Texas, and I've worked in a lot of municipalities. And a lot of the approach that I'm used to is that they put this on the contractor to make sure there's adequate site distance, because every property is so different. You have one rule that is designed to maintain adequate site distance, and no matter how restrictive you make it, it doesn't cover every circumstance. There's that one property that it doesn't quite cover, but on the other flip side of that, you make it so restrictive that there's a ton of properties where it wouldn't be an issue at all. So I think designing it, the 48 inches, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, it is a common standard in other areas, is very safe. There's almost no car on the market that if you're driving down, you won't be able to see the top of that car. Whether or not that car can see is, again, that's going to be really more of an issue on lot topography and where the road's going. But in general, I think that there can be just a little more work done to this, and can really allow for a lot more property owners to fully utilize what they see their lot, the promise of their lot. So that's it, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. I have no one else signed up to speak on this issue. Is there anyone that wishes to add anything before we close the public hearing?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure, absolutely, George.
Was there, because I looked in the packet, is there a copy of what you guys are reviewing somewhere that we could have seen? Because I didn't see it. Was that?
I mean, I have that, we have in the packet, I guess, what was considered overall, and then I guess what we're considering is just,
Right.
we're not considering the height of the fence. You've always been allowed to put a 48-inch fence in
Correct.
front of your property. We're considering basically the height of the solid part or the,
That's correct.
Yeah.
So this is the same ordinance that council reviewed,
I think that's what it is, George. I
except
think
looking at
it's
just that
just
30
changing
inch for the
those two
solid
things.
portion.
So you're just looking at the document that you already reviewed and commenting on it? Is that kind of what we're doing?
This is a request, this is a request to amend the document.
But this is the section of the
That wasn't
code.
in the P and Z packet though, right?
No, it's not in the packet.
Okay.
But same section we reviewed previously, just considering 48 inches instead of 30 inches for the solid portion. That's correct.
You good with that, George?
Yeah, I mean, I just wondered if it was
Okay,
there.
well, I'm gonna close this public hearing at 4:16. Any questions? So, what city council is looking for is whether or not to amend the original
Yes.
ordinance decision.
Yeah, as far as the change to allow other materials besides wrought iron, council agreed with that. But they did want to take a look at the 30 inches. Is it appropriate to move that up to 48 inches before they take final action? So it'll go back to council for first and second reading based on your recommendation today.
Anybody got any questions or comments?
I got a comment, and on the 48, and I'm thinking of neighborhood streets where you have kids riding small bicycles, tricycles, whatever. I have to question how well someone backing out of their drive could see such a small figure on the street. That's my safety concern, I guess.
I think whether they're on a sidewalk or in the street, parked cars can have that same impact.
Yep.
Again, even chain link fences with plants growing through it could have that same impact. So there's certainly other concerns like that to be taken into account. Hopefully, everyone's obeying speed limits in a neighborhood, and they're driving appropriate speeds and so on. But that's why I wanted to go through and look at some of the ones that I knew were existing, similar to the kind of requests that we've gotten, in addition to the solid concrete walls, precast concrete walls that they were talking about. But this one, to me, was kind of the best examples. Even the small car should have some visibility over it, albeit limited, but they would still have some. And as they back out, because we don't allow the fences all the way up next to the sidewalk, or all the way up to the curb, there is always that opportunity for visibility coming back out.
Kim, you got any comments?
No, I think, I agree with several comments that a lot of these older homes, most of their yard is actually in the front, which means if it's not fenced adequately, their kids can't be out there, their dogs can't be out there. I think it's very reasonable to have it at 48.
Anything?
I also agree. I think 48 is reasonable, as long as you have that buffer between the curb and the property line and where the fence starts.
I mean, I tend to agree completely. I think anybody that's gonna back out of their driveway and it's not, being safety enough conscious, they're just gonna blare out of the street. It wouldn't matter whether there was a fence there or not. And I would also say that some of these neighborhoods, you can see trees and things like that that might block their view as well. I absolutely think there's no issue whatsoever to recommend to city council that we approve, the 48-inch ability to go solid. And with some of the other materials, that would be my,
Like I said, even on a personal note, my neighbor's house, their side is the same side as the same as the front of my house. So they now have a 6-foot fence in their backyard where it used to be a 4-foot chain link fence, and I have no problems backing out. Obviously, it takes some adjustment. I can't look sitting where I'm parked. I got to back up first, but hasn't caused any issues, even with the 6-foot fence of their backyard.
so are you looking for us to make a motion to make this recommendation to city council? So on 3A, do I hear a motion to approve this change in the, it's not the height of the fence, it's the height of the solid part of the fence to 48 inches, correct?
That's correct.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment for the ordinance to allow the solid portion of the fence to go up to 48 inches.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Motion and second, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, this motion is approved. Thank you, guys.
One opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry, one opposed, 3-1. We're gonna move on to 3B.
It's an ordinance to annex into the city, Kerrville's incorporated city limits, 214 acre tract of land. A portion of this will be zoned ag, a portion zoned planned development district, and a portion zoned C3. And I'll go through some of those boundaries real quick, and then I'll turn it over to the applicant. There we go. So the annexation line actually splits the commercial almost down the center. A portion of that adjacent to the loop is already inside the city limits, and a portion of that will be annexed. But they are annexing or zoning all the way up to the property line for a commercial frontage along the loop, obviously a regional arterial. The housing portion here in the center will be planned development district. And then the balance, the remainder, kind of up into the hills side, will be zoned as ag.
So they're looking for the commercial, is it C3?
Yes, C3 zoning on the commercial. So that does offer, obviously, a wide array of commercial development. It does also allow for multifamily development, which should also be appropriate along the loop for that portion. The planned development district, I'll go kind of over the basics. And
Sure,
again,
can you go back? So where are you saying multifamily?
C3 allows for multifamily also. Which is also supported by the comp plan and the catalyst area for multifamily in this area. I'll briefly go over the planned development district and again let the applicant go into more detail. Minimum lot width will be 25 feet, minimum lot depth 110 feet. Minimum front setback is 20 feet, minimum side is 5, and the minimum rear setback is 15. So this differs from our R2 zoning a little bit. The 25-foot lot is allowed in R2, but it also requires an alley for rear access. They're not proposing to use alleys to save space on land and costs. The front setback is 20 feet instead of, it'd actually be 19 in R2 for the garage. Any portion that's not the garage could go to 15, but they've agreed to set it back to 20 feet. One, to help parking, two, for visibility, since they are narrow lots. The rear setback is 15 feet to make sure they can maximize that building footprint. And 5 foot is the standard setback for the side. They did put a note in that the non-standard lots would have reduced setbacks. Without defining what that is, staff can support the kind of open-ended reduced setbacks. If we go through and identify specific lots and their layout, we could certainly look at that, having reduced setbacks through justification, but we didn't have that level of detail at this time. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the applicant. And then
Before you do that, what's considered a non-standard lot?
I didn't have a good definition of that. That's why it was just a note in their plan development request. Like I said, typically it would be more like a cul-de-sac lot that tapers and the building footprint can't be placed in the normal location. But based on their layout, I don't really see any that would require reduced setbacks.
So in essence, on these 25-foot lots, you could have a 15-foot buildable width,
Yes,
and it could be 15 feet by 80 feet, say,
75.
75?
Double wide fits perfectly.
Okay,
Again, here's the annexation. It does include a portion of Olympic Drive in front of Hal Peterson Middle School. There's the current zoning, and you can see that strip of land inside the city limits along the loop that's currently zoned ag and public and institutional. That's the portion that they're requesting to be C3, plus a little bit that's being annexed will be C3 as well. And again, this is in the strategic catalyst area that focuses on the high school and middle school. and the vacant land along the loop for development. But please answer any questions before or after the applicant or the public hearing.
Is the applicant here?
Pablo Brinkman, 3928 Oak Park Drive. Thanks for having this on the agenda today. I represent Shriner University, which owns the property, and Clifton, which can talk. Mike and other board members from Lennar Homes is here. Be happy to. So we have allowed Lennar to go through the entitlement process on our behalf to work through this. We've got the balance acreage in ag because we don't know what that placeholder other than that's going to be. We have dreams, and the 350 back is under G3, so our C3 that we can just kind of have it open to anything. Right now, I heard you mention about multifamily. We have no plans of that right now, Mike. You know, it's just going to see what the market does and what it will be. But Shriner's going to have some pretty stringent restrictions on how that's going to look that we'll be bringing before everybody downstream. But Lennar Homes we're under contract for the highlighted. You can see the phase 1s and the phase 2s and how they are. We've got other people here that are on the councils, or rather the Chamber of Commerce Housing, and we all know, or everybody should be aware, that it's extremely cost prohibitive to build an affordable housing. Lennar Homes has broken ground and is in the process of moving forward on the property they got from the city, and this would be the future, up to 700 homes plus minus on here, and it'll be a multi-year phase build out. So we initially had a piece of the property that was reserved for Habitat, and Habitat bought Weston Place and moved on there. So Lennar was going to be selling that to them at their cost, but Lennar is taking down, that's in phase 2, contiguous kind of to Olympic Drive and where it comes up right behind the high school. So I'll be pleased to ask answer any questions, or Lennar representative. My colleague Clifton is here as well.
Well, I think what we'll do is now we'll go ahead and open the public hearing up, and then after we're
Great.
done, if we have some questions, we may get some questions. We have a couple of speakers signed up, so let's open the public hearing on this 3B at 428. And I have 2 signed up speakers, or maybe I have more. So, Mr. Baruti?
George Brody, 1616 Glen Road. You already touched on it, but I'm having a little trouble understanding how let me back up. So full disclosure, I'm a believer in less zoning, more ability to do whatever you can do to get your property developed. But if we're gonna have zoning, and one of our stated goals was to minimize the use of PDs, and here we are with a PD that has some lot sizes that, as you guys discussed, it's just a long straight, it's not unbuildable, it's buildable, but imagine a carport or a garage where it's gonna be. It's probably gonna be at the front, or it's gonna be in the back, which is gonna be, that's gonna be the house front, right? I mean, that's pretty much what you're looking at. So, to me, if we're gonna do lot sizes that are that narrow, I think part of the consideration should be just up front, 0 lot lines or something to that effect, because if you enforce 5-foot setbacks, you're looking at 15 by 75 feet that you're gonna try and get everything into. And that just seems kind of preposterous. The other thing is, be careful of what is likely to be called affordable housing unless you're talking about how big that house is, then you're not really comparing apples to apples. These will be probably nice homes for somebody with 1 or 2, 3 people maybe in the household, but much more than that, you're looking at a long straightaway, and if you've lived in a mobile home, that they're fine, but when you start putting lots of people in it, that layout doesn't work so well. So, I would encourage you to ask a lot of questions about what the goals are with these lot sizes, to find out if it's really a worthwhile deal. Thanks.
All right, Howard Hughes?
My name is Howard Hughes, and as far as I got the plating that you folks have, the average standard lot size is grossly too small. The engineers out of San Antonio have said there's gonna be 2 cars. Where are you gonna park the second car? If any of you have driven around that street, what do you do, block your driveway? You're gonna block 1 car with the car that's maybe on the 20-foot driveway section. These homes are too small. You have 107 acres in ag. Why in the world do you want to do a PD and have such tiny homes, tiny lots? You can have a tiny home, but the lot can't even accommodate a couple, let alone a couple with kids, or if they have a teenager. Are you going to bar teenagers? Where are you going to put the 3rd car? Are you going to park it like in the high school, in the school parking lot? This is very poorly thought out. You got 107 acres there. For your planned development district, you can do anything you want, and you all know that. Why would you sit there and downsize and skinny this in so this is going to be a nightmare? There's going to be 1,400, they estimate 1,406 cars in and out on a daily basis. Do you realize how dangerous that's going to be with little kids in there? Or are you going to say kids aren't welcome when you got a junior high school right next door? This needs to be rethought and reformatted. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Katie Jordan.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, Board. Good afternoon, community. I am Katie Milton Jordan, and I represent the Kerr Economic Development Corporation, and I also serve on the Chamber Housing Committee. And I am not a planning and zoning expert, but I am here to share with you some anecdotal evidence about the challenges that our business community is experiencing as it relates to their labor force. In our office, we have experienced 2 main challenges when it comes to labor force and attainable housing. One of the challenges that we're experiencing is that our existing employers are reporting challenges retaining their existing employees because they don't have access to attainable housing. And they're also having challenges recruiting new employees to our community because they don't have access to attainable housing. We've also found it a challenge to recruit new businesses to our community because the attainable housing affects the labor force. While we always strive to recruit businesses that are Hill Country friendly, when we don't have easy access to attainable housing, it makes it even more challenging for us to recruit from an even larger pool of businesses that would like to consider our community. Thank you.
Mike? I don't know if it's Buskett or Burkett.
My name's Mike Burkett.
Yeah.
I live at 1906 Danielle, which backs up to the agricultural portion of this. And I'm looking a little bit farther down in the future than what you're doing. My understanding at this point is that there is one road, not Olympic, but the next one over is called Bow, B-O-W. And it's my understanding there's no plan to connect Bow to anything in there. Is that right? Hello?
I believe you're correct, sir. There's no, Bow Lane is separate, not part of
Right.
anything to connect to.
Well, of course, it happened to Olympic too, but if the plan is that Bow Lane is not going to ever be accessed from how are you going to use the backside, the agricultural? I can't tell from this how you're gonna get back there unless you go through either Lytle or Bow Lane.
No, sir, we have, for right now, we have no plans for it but ag, but downstream for development, off of Loop 534, we have other access that's paged north right up here that would go contiguous to our property line and be able to access. We have plans for a major road that would come in to access the rest of the property.
Okay, so it would wander in from the loop.
Roger that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Come through the commercial,
Pardon me?
come through the commercial.
Come through the commercial, we have, right where it says, pardon me, right where it says, Mike, kind of that general, you can't see where I'm looking, but, where it says general commercial C3, where that arrow's pointing.
Yes.
We have a curb cut kind of right in there right now because we have access for the city, for Stewart's crews to access the city utilities and the water. So it comes around where Drew's pointer is. So we have a road there. And when Lennar takes that down, Drew, if you can point, well, anyway, long story short is we have plans for the immediate, and then depending on what develops or doesn't develop, it wouldn't go through Bow Lane. We wouldn't cut through another neighborhood. The main access is always going to be off of 534 for fire, for safety, for ingress and egress.
Well, Bow is only like 30 feet wide.
Yes, sir.
So it couldn't handle traffic at all.
Yes, sir.
The one other question I have is there any kind of buffering easements that exist now that back up to Bow or back up to Lytle? Are there utility easements, water easements, flood easements? What's the green line?
Well, the green line is the.
Yeah, I understand it's the boundary.
Yes, sir.
Are there easements up there?
There's an easement that cuts up from Olympic Drive and goes all the way up to the tower that the city of Kerrville has.
Right.
That's there. We also have, I believe, some fiber that's in there that's contiguous up to this. But we have, the topo as it goes down to Bow Lane is pretty crazy. So, for building costs alone, and again, this could be 5 years, it could be 5 days before we get something here. We're not going to solicit anything until we get Lennar and have sticks up is when we'll start marketing it. But as far as entering Bow Lane continuing on, I don't see that's a positive in any capacity right now.
Well, I agree, but I'm just wondering about backing up there too. Is there
Well, it would
plan to be a buffer back there?
It would be just like in the, and again, I think it's important that we focus on what we're here for, not what we're not here for. We're not to approve 25-foot anything, and there's gonna be plenty and ample time for everybody to have, vernacularize this however they want to. What we're here for is what the agenda item is on here on 3B, but to answer your question, sir, it'd be in the city, it would be just like any other development. We're not gonna put a convenience store or a Quick Trip up there next to Bow Lane. So it's gonna be how the engineers develop the rest of that product. I can't answer what kind of buffer is gonna be. Topo is gonna limit a lot what we can do on the rest of this tract. Thus, what this one gentleman said, why Lennar, that's the lowest hanging fruit, is why they took that. Why didn't they go uphill? Because of their build cost. And I've got, again, it's not the time, but I have plenty of comments to talk about different things on housing and things like that. But I just want to focus what we're here for today in front of P&Z.
All right.
There is no telling that's gonna be zoned agriculture before anything can be done with that. It would
understand.
have to be rezoned to something, and there would be another hearing before that.
Okay, just trying to look ahead as
Yes, sir.
quickly as we can.
And
Thank you.
I think you look at who the client is at Shriner University. It's a new Shriner. They want to be about the people will be about them. So they're going to be very sensitive to neighbors and things like that. And that's why, as I mentioned on the commercial, Dr. Lucian, who's here, has some pretty strict guidelines for me on how he wants it to look. So,
All right, thank you.
yes, sir.
Kelly Dooley?
Hi. I just wanted to bring up water, electricity, those types of things. I mean, all of us are under different types of restrictions from time to time throughout the year. And I don't think that that's really being taken into consideration when you're adding 700 homes on tiny little lots. Also, you know, I just sat through UGRA meetings where for the county now, they're trying to restrict people to minimum 10 acres for a well because of water shortages. And I'm here looking at this. It's unbelievable. It's like the tail wagging the dog. I think that needs to be considered.
Well, what we're considering today is annexation and zoning, and once if this was to come to fruition, that would all be, you know, water capacity, sewer capacity, traffic counts and things like that would be considered before anything was approved for development.
Before it was annexed or before you
No, ma'am.
approved what was going on there? Yeah.
Before something goes on there.
Well, again, tail wagging the dog, but.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Bruce Drakey, 615 Earl Garrett. I am really glad that Lennar is looking at Kerrville and with the work that they're doing across Olympic Drive. But it's presented that proposed planned development doesn't accomplish our primary purpose for a planned development district, which is to bring innovation and uniqueness. This is the same curvilinear design we've been looking at for 70 years. And what I'm struggling with is our R2 zone offers them a wonderful opportunity to do 25-foot lots for townhomes, 30-foot lots for small lot single family, 40-foot lots for patio homes and single family, no, 30-foot lots for patio homes, 40-foot lots for regular single family with opportunities for this curvilinear thing that we've been doing for 70 years. My problem is that what really seems to be happening is we seem to be running around our zoning code because of the cost for the alleys. We don't have any significant open space other than the storm drainage. We don't have anything unique. There isn't an innovative design here. And the cost of alleys are expensive. A problem with our zone is the city requires alleys to be privately owned and maintained by the HOA. I've always disagreed with that. Our zoning ordinance should allow alleys to be public right-of-ways and maintained by the city. And I know Stewart doesn't want to do that, and the street department, excuse me, not you, Public Works, but the street department doesn't want to do that. But that's a burden that we're putting on our neighborhoods that we're ignoring. And my real problem is that during the creation of the 2050 comprehensive plan, we had droves of people come out and we encouraged them to embrace density. And the one thing that they said is we wanted walkable, friendly neighborhoods that encouraged interaction. And that's why the R2 zone requires rear loading. If we were to tweak the R2 and make these lots be 30 by 95, they'd be 2,850 square feet, a little bit wider, we rear load them, that would, with this existing layout, provide access for up to a 30-foot right-of-way behind it. That should be dedicated to the city. Then we should mix the lot widths. Instead of doing all 25s on a street or a block, we should have mixes between the small lot single families and the regular single families, so they're 30 and 40 feet. And then maybe on the small lot single families, we allow them to have a smaller front setback. And then we don't just have a row that we can all look down of these narrow houses, which we all know are going to be 2 stories. They got 800 square feet on the ground, so there's going to be something upstairs. After you put a 1-car garage, you have 800 square feet on the ground, about. This is a great idea, but this is not the right way to do it. And going around our zoning code to get it done is a mistake.
Thank you. Anybody else?
trying to think how to respond to that, Bruce. I agree with 7 years, and I agree with some of the things you say. What I don't agree with is that nobody else is doing it. And we are so the answer is, don't do it. I know you'd like to see walkability, things of that nature, just like I think it comes down to reality right now. It's the cost of doing business, and it's simply this much.
You and I both worked on the 2050 plan along with a lot of folks, and the citizens, they came out and they said, we'll approve this if you do it this way.
Okay, so pre-COVID, building costs, economy's changed. I sat in committees also that it was very much on infill and things of this. I know of probably 40 people that want to buy that 25 lot because they can, because it gives them an opportunity. Again, we're going to have plenty of time for this. I just urge us to stay on task of what this is, not what this isn't. And so
We're approving 25-foot lots today, because that's a PD.
I understand. I know what we're doing.
So, if you go back to an alley, I can't speak for Lennar. I don't know if they want to speak about that. I know that the building cost, it adds significant to it.
Put it in the development agreement. You know
So-
that's being worked on.
We got it. All right, I'm gonna close this public hearing at 4:46. Does anybody here have any questions for the developer, for Lennar, or for? Anybody have any comments?
I've seen a few pictures of, I think, advertisements that Lennar puts out for their different neighborhoods and stuff. I just am curious, where have these 25-foot lots, with 15-foot wide house, where are some of these projects been done? What's the overall feel about it and the reception?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Clifton Karam. I'm in the land department for the Lennar Homes Division of San Antonio. I've been working on this project for a couple of years now. So we're building, and this proposes a mix. It's not all 25. So we put in the PDD the smallest home site size that would be allowable. But there is a mix. Some of it is very similar to what we're building currently in Ridgeland across the street. And we have built similar communities with a mix of home site sizes and collections, home collections to offer, and probably half a dozen spots across San Antonio. I know, Drew, you drove some of them. I think, Southton Meadows, which is at Southton at 37, has a pretty good mix similar to this. Trying to think of where, we have another deal called Ruby Crossing that's on 1604 South. So we've done this periodically. It's an opportunity to bring obtainable housing to communities. It is very much cost-driven, the density, the alleys, everything else. I mean, everything Pablo said is spot on. It's cost-driven. It's an opportunity to put a value product on the ground that otherwise would not be available, and for entry-level home buyers. So that's who we are. That's what we've done. Definitely open to any ideas, but that's our goal in mind, is to create attainable housing for working families.
And what would the price point of these probably be, ballpark?
Ballpark would be, 200 to 300. I mean, across the different product lines.
What is the price point on the development on the other side of the school, on the city property? What's your price point over there? Do you know offhand?
I don't.
No, it's different because the land was put in.
Right. Yes, sir.
Michael, do you have that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, and I apologize for my address. I just drove in from Dallas. We were looking at public safety facilities in suburbs around there, so I couldn't find my jacket before I got here. The agreement that we have set up in the other project has a cap that's adjusted by HUD each year. Last year it was $251,000 was the cap for Kirk County. I believe this year's is $263,000. That number jumps pretty quickly when you hopefully it starts to level out, but it is getting increasingly higher. So 263 is that cap for the number that HUD puts at the attainable range.
So they have to be at that or lower?
That or lower, that's correct.
Well, they can go above it. I think then the city claws back the money.
There's some challenges in there, so we're working through all that with the development agreements, because all those questions that you would think BIC, city council, staff, we've all been working through. And so we've been working through discussions with Lennar, just to jump in, on how we can work towards a solution that we've talked about for many years before I was here. So when we were at the Economic Summit, the housing discussion was the exact same as it was the year before when I first got here. It was 2 weeks into my job, we went to that summit, and I think I heard the same exact conversation. And so from the city standpoint, when we speak to Peterson, when we speak to the state hospital, when we speak to James Avery, when we speak to all those employers, one of their biggest challenges is finding a place where those folks can live. Now, there's a multitude of housing types that could accommodate folks, from apartments that are tax credit apartments to market rate apartments and luxury homes in other parts of town. There's also a market for this, and you know, wages are going up, and this isn't really part of this discussion, but this is where the city standpoint is, because we are supportive of this. We're looking towards trying to find an answer that works for everybody. But we're also trying to work through that housing goal in the way that we can. So when Lennar comes to us and says, if we're gonna be able to build a house that's $250,000 or less, it's gonna have to look like this. And we can do one-story homes that are wider. Challenge that I have in that is anybody can scoop these homes up. And I don't know how the best way to say it, but workforce folks will buy a 2-story house, and folks who aren't in the workforce will be less inclined to buy a 2-story house. And so we wanted them to have mixes of 2-story homes in there. And when they looked at their cost breakdowns, the idea they came to us with was, if we can make these lots narrower, it'll be easier for us to build those 2-story homes. Now granted, when I look at them, they're skinny, right? You have a one car garage, you got a door on your side, you've got a kitchen, and you've got a living room on the base floor, and then your second floor is all your bedrooms up there.
Square footage wise, what are we looking at on these homes?
1,100 to 1,500, I don't know. Clifton?
Yeah, I was gonna say, 900 to, I think, 1,650. On the 25, and again, that's only one component of this plan development.
But that's the figure, Mike, is 251 right now, probably 263 this year.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
David?
One question related to the comment about not all of them will be 25-foot wide. Can you come up with a percentage of what kind of dedicated to the 25 foot?
There's a table, I don't know if you could zoom in on that maybe.
Maybe
Okay.
300 out of 700.
But the percentage, do you have a?
Yeah, 360.
Shoot, I'd have to start doing math. I'm not that good, sorry.
Roughly half.
So you have, in essence, 200, 326, you have 360 of these homes will be minimum of 35-foot lots? Is that what you're saying there?
25.
No, you've got 149, it says here, lot size 135 by 110. You've got 50 lots that are 45 by 110.
Right.
Then you've got 126 that are 35 by 110, and you've got 35 that are 45 by 110.
Right, so roughly half are
Half.
gonna be 35 or bigger, half are gonna be 25.
Yeah, okay.
So, this is not written in stone.
Right.
If we just approve a PDD, they could put every lot in there, it could be 25 feet. Am I correct?
Clifton, do you know what if you'll go back to that last slide, what the non-standard lots have, what that is, or?
I would want to double check with our engineer, but I'm pretty sure Drew nailed it. We talked about cul-de-sac home sites. When those pie shape, sometimes it's you have to creep up a little bit to fit the building pad.
Does that answer your question, David?
And I think from the city standpoint, the issue there is since one of the two required parking spaces is the garage, the other one is the driveway, anything less than 19 feet wouldn't count for a parking space anyway. So at a minimum, they're reducing that setback by 1 foot. Otherwise, that parking space wouldn't count. So since we're sitting at a 20-foot front setback, there's no real room for reduction there. Now, if we're talking about reducing the rear setback, I don't see any concern there. If they do need to push the home further back on the lot to get that buildable pad site, we could certainly work through that, but.
Jim, you got any?
There's no perfect solution for the housing. Like everything that has come before P and Z for the last couple of years that I've watched, you know, it's either been shot down because somebody doesn't want it next door to them or, you know, traffic, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, there's not going to be a perfect solution. And we desperately need the housing. And to me, the two-story, like was brought up, it's perfect for entry level. It's what they're gonna be looking at. They're very comfortable with it. To me, it's kind of going back to old school shotgun houses, and to me, it can also create really happy neighborhoods, so.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that we need some attainable housing. I'm not sure that we need 700 attainable houses in one little spot. I tend to have mixed feelings about this. I have some agreement with Bruce. I mean, I'm not a big fan of planned development districts. We've had a PDD come through here before that they were asking for the moon to be able to do whatever they wanted, not requiring any variances to do everything they wanted to do, and we did not approve that. And that's not come back, but I understand the need for what we need, but I'm not. I mean, you're sticking 700 homes right next to a middle school across the street from a high school in existing neighborhoods, and I know we need housing, and I'm not sure that we can't come to some way to figure out how to do this and have it kind of coexist with the existing people that live here and the issues that it's going to bring. Personally, there's not enough information. Quite honestly, there's not enough information. We don't know what you're going to build. We don't know how many 25-foot lots you're going to have. We have no. This is 700 homes squeezed in with no green space. You know, no walking paths. I would personally like to have some more information before I would approve just a blank check. I appreciate Lennar coming in here. I appreciate what they're doing, but we're giving them a blank check really to kind of design whatever they want to do. And once the PDD is done, I mean, as long as they meet the codes for whatever they build, we don't really have much control over what goes on in there. And I have some issues with that. So
I wonder if, totally crazy perhaps, could the size of the PDD be reduced? In other words, a small portion of what they're planning.
Well, I think it probably could. I mean, I think we have one question here, and that's annexation and zoning.
Chairman, if I may, addressed in one of the questions about the PD is drafted again, as Clifton mentioned, starting with the minimum of 25 foot. They're not opposed to capping that as a percentage in the planned development district. Say it's about 51% as drawn. Give them 55% just to give that buffer as they go through their final engineering. But this is their plan showing the variety of those lots. Again, it's not fully engineered yet, but this is where they're headed for the mixture of 45, 35, and 25-foot lots. And then additionally, a lot of the other details, the development agreement that they're working through with staff and city council would be able to control some of those things. Where they're not really appropriate to control in the zoning, the development agreement would add those extra layers which collection are they using, what are the building types, percentage of two-story, and so on. But just to answer a couple of your questions, so.
Something else to consider as well is a lot of the families that would be coming in here, this gives them a little bit more freedom also with their children. They can literally walk to school. And it's very convenient, you know, they don't have to leave work to get their kids, or, I mean, there's just, to me, for the people that would be moving in here, it could be a huge asset for them to be that close to the high school and the junior high.
And Drew, if I may, and Mike, I think if, a couple of things, ending with what Kim just said, it's by design of why that's there. Walkability to Tom Daniels, Peterson, you know, K through 12, it's there. It's almost like we built the schools around a community. And if you do your due diligence in other communities, that's a huge thing. They do that. They build schools around it. Obviously, in Kerrville, we can't do that. Versus, you know, if it's possibly comments even, or approval with, or something like that. I'd hate to see us get to this and it be something, if there's need more data, we obviously want to do that. We've had 2 years in the saddle to get to this point. We did put a hold on it, a pause on it, for those that have kept up with the media, just like Lennar did on Ridgeland just for a little bit. And so they're very bullish on Kerrville. They're very bullish on this product. I don't want to speak for Lennar. I'll speak for my client, Shriner. We want this to work for the right reasons. We don't want to force feed anything. So with comments, and I understand a lot of people's comments today on lot sizes and things like that, because we've never experienced that. And so I go back to trying to get a product here to Kerrville that is hemorrhaging for a product that's affordable, and what's the best way to do that. And possibly with some comments or things like that, I don't want to spend more money for you, but I want to, you know, it's got to be successful for us. Phase 1 has to be successful for us to do phase 2. And so I would encourage just a little bit of thinking that way. Thank you.
Anything else, guys? Yes, sir. The public hearing is closed.
Close.
Yes, sir. I guess, if there are no more comments, we can call the question on the annexation. It's all one thing: annexation, agricultural zoning, PDD, and commercial C3 zoning. So do I have any motions on this? So I have no motion to approve. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have no second, so this motion fails.
I'll just speak up. My biggest concern is just with the openness of the 25-foot lot size with the PDE, and them being able to kind of do whatever they want once that gets approved. I have the pleasure of serving on Habitat for Humanity board. Whenever we open up applications for homes, we have 400 plus people that apply for homes. Like, I absolutely know that homes are needed and recognize that, but my biggest concern with this is just the 25-foot and the openness of them being able to do with it what they please. So if we could, you know, amend it a little bit to, what do you say, 55% of the total development? Is that per number of lots or?
We'll do it per number of lots, that way it ties it to the plat as well. And that would, it fits within their, what they've shown as their plan here. Again, once they get through final engineering, if they lose a few of any of those type, 55% would keep them within those bounds of what
Any
the numbers
comments,
they've shown
David,
here.
since we're,
No, as you pointed out, I think, some of the detailed information just is lacking. PDDs are,
my comment is the same. I mean, we looked at the PDD for the Keeble property. They came in with a very, very detailed analysis of what they were gonna do, and, you know, I mean, I'm all for the project. I would really like to see a little bit more information. I'd like to see a little bit more commitment that can be written into this with, you know, a variation of lot sizes, a little bit more detail about what they're gonna build.
Is there an amount, percentage, as Tabor said, that you could see P and Z getting behind them? Because we don't want to do a bunch of spade work with it falling back to the same thing.
For that matter, we could tie it to this plan.
Yeah. I think,
That would, I'm gonna zoom in just a second.
just me personally speaking, I think, like I said, I absolutely know that this is an issue. We need these homes. I think there's a market for these homes, especially at that price point here in Kerrville. I mean, there's nothing else out there for this. I just didn't want to pass something that you could go out and now all of a sudden we've got this piece of property and we've got 1,200 homes on it, because I think 700 is already more than plenty. But I also recognize that Lennar's a developer and it's expensive to move dirt here and to make things build ready. I know that very well. So you gotta find a solution that works for everybody. And
So basically, all we have in this conceptual plan here is phase numbers.
Each phase number, I know it's hard to read on your screen, shows what size lots they are as well.
Correct.
So you could tie it to this, this basically plan here to show phase 1A is, I can't read on this screen, 35-foot lots. Phase 1B is 45, phase 2A is 35, phase 1C and 2B are the 25-foot lots. Like I said, I apologize, I know it's hard to read. Might be easier to read on your paper. That would limit them to those areas for those lots. And then, of course, we have the lot breakdown here of the total number of lots. Like I said, for the sake of final engineering design, plus or minus, 5%. If they need to shift the total lot count, I'd imagine it gets smaller before it gets larger, because they're not gaining any more land. But as they get utility design and drainage design completed, they have already done their stormwater management plan. And again, they provided the traffic impact analysis. I gave you the 18-page summary instead of the 123-page analysis, but so they've obviously done their homework, and this is where they feel that they can perform. So,
And Mike, the reason why they're not a 35 next to a 45 next to a 25 is just how you market those homes for marketing, that.
Yeah, I understand that.
So at that, so that's why each pod, for lack of a better term, is at that.
Mike, if you don't mind, I was just gonna
Sure.
offer one more comment. We've spoken to city council about workforce housing, we've discussed, and they've seen some of these iterations. And, they share the same sentiments about capping these 25-foot lots, because it's hard for everybody to look at and see and conceptualize. And so there's no scenario under which this would exceed what you're looking at here. they wouldn't be able to do it. This is a part, we're gonna work through development agreements with them. They're gonna have restrictions in there. But we also want to accommodate, the goals that we're talking about, but there, in no way would there be, go from this to 1,225-foot lots. No way. That's my guarantee.
But if there is a percentage, Drew, that P and Z would be comfortable with, that could be written in. I don't know if Lennar's comfortable with this is on the fly. They may go, it's too expensive, that puts our price, or it's gonna, obviously, as you increase, so. And I don't know, if you probably can't answer that.
Well, the plan presented is our intent. So very comfortable, any kind of commitment to follow through with that plan, very comfortable making that today. Anything that requires, more analysis, I'd have to get back on.
But they could say approval with a minimum amount, then you could say, we can or can't make it work.
Yes, sir.
I would rather see that, Tabor, versus, but I'm not on P and Z, I'm an audience member.
I mean, I'm comfortable with two things. I'm comfortable with them coming back with a different scenario, or I'm comfortable with leaving it the decision that we have and letting it go to city council and letting them make the decision. I'm not comfortable with these PDDs. I'm just not. I mean, this is a very,
Chairman, at this point, they can't take it to council because the commission has not made a decision. It died for a lack of second, so you have not denied the case, therefore they cannot appeal to council.
Drew, I'll make a motion to approve annexation and the PDD with the, can we hold them to this plan and just say with the PDD adhering to the plan summarized? And the reason I'm doing that is specifically because I don't want to see an increase in 25-foot lots.
Yeah. So it'll be written tied to this plan, not to exceed, those densities and that summary table there.
I'll make that motion.
we have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor?
One point of clarification. PDD, the C3, and the ag zoning.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay.
Favored. All opposed?
Okay. Go.
Thank you for your time.
And the only other thing I have for you is just a reminder, next meeting is July 6th.
Drew, they can make a decision here. That was a motion that failed, but if you want to consider another motion, now's the time to do that. And that won't go forward.
So we could make a motion to not,
Y'all's charge here is to make a determination, right? Make a report that goes to council, your advisory body on zoning issues.
correct.
We encourage you all to make a motion either way. Take some action, approve, deny, approve with amendments, but do something so that we can move that forward to council.
So that doesn't count as a denial that they can appeal to council?
No. I mean, it failed. That motion failed. So the flip side to that is motion to deny as is, and then that recommendation would go to council. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it adds clarity because it helps staff, obviously, and then in the interim, it helps council understand what you all have done as well. And then we take that actual report to council, and then they consider the zoning.
For the lack of green space, if the PDD could be modified to add some green space.
Well, there's a couple of things that the PDD could be modified, but I mean, that's something that he can't do because it affects their bottom line. I would love to see them come back with some modification that reduces some of these 25-foot lots and adds more 35 and 45-foot lots instead of 50% of them being 25-foot lots, but that's not what we have in front of us. And
Is there a percentage, Mike, that you are thinking?
I would like to see the 25-foot lots be no more than like 40% and the balance of the lots be 60%. I could get behind something like that. But, I mean,
Mr.
that's,
Lipscomb, would you also?
would that be,
Do you understand what he said?
Yeah, that's certainly better.
So that's the main thing, is that, and I've heard green space and things like that, but,
Can you give it the mic?
thank you for that. It gives us some homework to work on. No promises, but, no, I appreciate the comments and I understand people's, thoughts and concerns. I mean, green spaces, you know, Uncle Schreiner's gonna have to give them that, cause that's something that's difficult
Yeah.
on this topo, on this property, but
Sure.
anyway. Okay. So was,
Then I get, sorry.
You wanna amend?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and, make a new motion, or amend my motion, I don't know what the proper terminology is there, to limit the 25-foot lots to 40% of the total lots, with, you said 35 being the remaining.
no, I mean, they have 30.
45.
Well, I think we have to be careful here because we have some 45-foot lots in there. And we may now see those lots, well,
it's gonna have to go up on
Yeah.
either of the other ones. You're
Yeah.
gonna get what you're asking for if you reduce the amount of 25s
Okay.
to a certain percentage. It's gotta go somewhere.
So limit
I think-
25s and be done with it.
I think,
I'll make a motion that we approve the annexation and the PDD, with a limit of 40%.
I'm sorry, just to stop you there, but just approve the
PDD
zoning
and the
and
zoning.
then comma, PDD with the, yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. To
you
approve,
got it right, Mike?
You will.
We'll get there.
make a motion to approve the annexation, the zoning, and the PDD, of this request with the amendment that, 25-foot lots not exceed 40% of the total lots of the project.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Okay, that motion passes.
Thank you. Staff, thank
We hope you can make it work.
you. We hope we do too. That's a lot of work to now go through, but thank you.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you.
Okay, now your next meeting is July 6th. Next meeting is July 6th.
July 6th, that's 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, that's right. That means you have to keep it under.
I'll give you
control.
Tuesday off.
Yeah.
Be here Thursday.
Okay, with that, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're good.